What if I told you that Iran and the United States, two countries that now see each other as enemies, were once trusted friends? What if one secret operation changed the future of the Middle East forever? And what if decisions made more than 70 years ago are still shaping today's world? This is not simply the story of Iran and the United States. It is a story of friendship, power, oil, revolution, and choices whose consequences continue even today. To understand why these two nations became rivals, we must travel back to the beginning. Welcome to English Orbit, where you improve your English through inspiring historical stories. Now, let's begin. Long before the modern conflict began, Iran was known as Persia. For thousands of years, Persia was one of the world's greatest civilizations. Its kings ruled vast empires. Its scholars made remarkable discoveries. Its poets wrote masterpieces that are still admired today. In 1935, the government officially asked the world to use the name Iran, meaning land of the Aryans. Although the name changed, the country's rich history remained the same. During the early 20th century, however, Iran faced a serious challenge. Two powerful empires surrounded it. To the north was the Soviet Union. To the south and west was the British Empire. Both wanted influence inside Iran. But they were not interested only in friendship. They wanted something far more valuable. Oil. In 1908, British engineers discovered enormous oil reserves in southwestern Iran. At that time, oil was becoming one of the world's most valuable resources. Factories depended on it. Ships depended on it. Soon, modern armies would depend on it as well. Britain quickly gained control over much of Iran's oil through the Anglo-Persian Oil Company. British companies earned enormous profits. But ordinary Iranians received very little. Many worked in difficult conditions. Their wages remained low. Their communities stayed poor. As British wealth increased, frustration inside Iran also grew. People began asking an important question. Why should foreigners control Iran's natural resources? Those questions would eventually change the country's future. In 1925, a military officer named Reza Khan became Reza Shah Pahlavi. He dreamed of building a strong and modern Iran. He constructed roads and railways, opened new schools, strengthened the military, and encouraged industry. Most importantly, he wanted Iran to become independent from foreign influence. As Europe moved toward World War II, Reza Shah declared that Iran would remain neutral. He refused to become completely dependent on either Britain or the Soviet Union. Instead, he expanded economic relations with Germany. But Britain and the Soviet Union became suspicious. They feared Germany might use Iran as an important strategic base. Iran's military could not resist for long. Within weeks, Reza Shah was forced to leave the throne and go into exile. His young son, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, became the new Shah of Iran. For many Iranians, the invasion was deeply humiliating. It showed that powerful foreign nations could still decide Iran's future. That painful memory would never be forgotten. Unlike Britain and the Soviet Union, however, the United States had a very different image in Iran. America had never ruled Iran. It had never colonized the country. During World War II, American engineers and military advisors arrived to help transport supplies through Iran to the Soviet Union. This route became known as the Persian Corridor. Thousands of trucks carried food, medicine, weapons, and equipment across Iranian roads. American workers often cooperated closely with Iranian workers. Many friendships developed. To many ordinary Iranians, Americans seemed respectful and helpful. For the first time, relations between Iran and the United States became genuinely friendly. When World War II ended in 1945, a new global struggle quickly began. The Cold War. The United States and the Soviet Union competed for influence around the world. Iran suddenly became one of the most important countries on earth. It bordered the Soviet Union. It possessed enormous oil reserves. And it connected Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. Both superpowers wanted Iran as an ally. Then, in the early 1950s, a new political leader captured the attention of millions. His name was Mohammad Mossadegh. He believed Iran should fully control its own oil. His message was simple. Iranian oil belongs to the Iranian people. Crowds admired him. Students supported him. Workers celebrated him. In 1951, Mossadegh became prime minister. Soon after taking office, he made one of the boldest decisions in modern Middle Eastern history. He nationalized Iran's oil industry. For millions of Iranians, it was a proud moment. Their country was finally taking back its own resources. But Britain was furious. It demanded that Mossadegh reverse his decision. He refused. Economic sanctions followed. Iran's economy entered a difficult crisis. At first, the United States watched carefully. Some American officials believed Mossadegh's demands were understandable. But as the Cold War became more dangerous, Washington began to worry. American leaders feared that political instability might plant the seeds of a rivalry that still shapes world politics today. When we left the story, Iran had reached a historic turning point. Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh had nationalized Iran's oil industry. For millions of Iranians, he was a national hero. For Britain, he had become a serious threat. And for the United States, he had become a difficult question. Should America support a democratically elected leader? Or protect its strategic interests during the Cold War? No one realized it at the time. But the answer would change the Middle East forever. Britain was determined to regain control of Iran's oil. For decades, the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company had earned enormous profits. Now those profits were gone. Britain first tried negotiations. When they failed, it imposed economic sanctions. The British Navy blocked much of Iran's oil exports. Government income fell sharply. Factories slowed down. Unemployment increased. Iran entered a severe financial crisis. Yet Mossadegh refused to change his decision. His message remained simple. Iran belongs to Iranians. Despite the economic difficulties, many citizens continued to support him. But behind closed doors, another plan was already taking shape. At first, American President Harry Truman hoped the crisis could be solved peacefully. However, after Dwight D. Eisenhower became president in 1953, American policy changed. The Cold War was growing more dangerous. Communism had spread across Eastern Europe. China had become communist. The Korean War had increased fears of Soviet expansion. Many American officials worried that political instability in Iran might allow the Communist Tudeh Party to gain power. Whether those fears were justified remains a subject of debate among historians. But in Washington, the concern was real. Britain approached the United States with a secret proposal. Together, their intelligence agencies would remove Mossadegh from power. The mission received a code name: Operation Ajax. It became one of the first major covert operations carried out by the CIA and MI6. Instead of sending an army, they planned to influence events from inside Iran. Secret agents contacted politicians. Money was secretly distributed. Some newspapers published anti-Mossadegh stories. Rumors spread across Tehran. Public demonstrations were encouraged. Confusion grew. Ordinary citizens struggled to separate facts from propaganda. For days, the atmosphere became increasingly tense. In August 1953, the first attempt failed. Mossadegh discovered that something unusual was happening. Several military officers involved in the plot were arrested. The Shah became frightened and left Iran. Many people believed the conspiracy had collapsed. Crowds celebrated in the streets. It seemed democracy had survived. But the operation was not over. The CIA reorganized its supporters. New demonstrations filled the streets. Some protesters genuinely opposed Mossadegh. Others had been secretly paid. The political situation became more chaotic every day. Then, on August 19, 1953, everything changed. Large crowds clashed across Tehran. Military units switched sides. Government buildings were attacked. Radio stations were seized. By the end of the day, Mossadegh had lost control. His government had fallen. The coup had succeeded. Only days later, Mohammad Reza Shah returned to Iran. Western governments welcomed his return. Britain regained access to Iranian oil. The United States strengthened its influence inside Iran. From Washington's point of view, the operation had prevented Iran from falling under Soviet influence. But inside Iran, many people saw the events very differently. They believed a foreign government had overthrown their democratically elected prime minister. That belief would shape Iranian public opinion for generations. During the following years, relations between Iran and the United States became stronger than ever. America invested billions of dollars in Iran. Modern weapons arrived. Military advisors trained Iranian forces. Universities exchanged students. Businesses expanded. The Shah became one of America's closest allies in the Middle East. Iran's economy grew rapidly. New highways, factories, schools, and hospitals appeared across the country. Many foreign visitors described Iran as one of the fastest-growing nations in the region. But beneath the impressive progress, another reality was emerging. Not everyone benefited equally. Many rural communities remained poor. The gap between rich and poor widened. At the same time, the Shah introduced a major reform program known as the White Revolution. It expanded education, improved health care, encouraged industrial development, and gave women the right to vote. Many people welcomed these reforms. Others believed the country was becoming too dependent on Western influence. As criticism increased, the Shah relied more heavily on his security agency, SAVAK. Opposition politicians were monitored. Journalists faced censorship. Students and religious leaders were watched closely. Many critics were arrested. Human rights organizations later accused SAVAK of torture and political repression. Fear quietly spread throughout Iranian society. One of the Shah's strongest critics was a religious scholar named Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. He accused the government of becoming too dependent on the United States. After criticizing the Shah, he was arrested and later forced into exile. But exile did not silence him. His speeches were secretly recorded onto cassette tapes. They spread across Iran through homes, mosques, universities, and markets. Year after year, his influence continued to grow. By the late 1970s, Iran appeared modern and prosperous from the outside. But beneath the surface, inflation was rising. Political freedoms remained limited. Public anger was growing. And because the United States had supported the Shah for decades, many Iranians began directing their frustration toward America as well. When we left the story, Iran appeared modern and successful from the outside. New roads and factories had transformed many cities. Oil money flowed into the economy. The United States considered Iran its strongest ally in the Middle East. But beneath the surface, public anger continued to grow. Many people wanted political freedom. Others demanded economic justice. Religious leaders believed the country was losing its Islamic identity. Different groups had different goals. But they shared one belief. The Shah's rule could not continue. In early 1978, protests erupted across Iran. At first, they were small. Students marched through universities. Religious leaders delivered powerful speeches. Workers organized strikes. The government responded with arrests and force. Instead of ending the protests, the violence made them even larger. Every funeral became another demonstration. Every protest created more anger. Month after month, millions of people filled the streets. Factories stopped working. Oil production slowed. Government offices struggled to function. The country was becoming impossible to govern. For nearly 15 years, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini had lived in exile. But distance had not weakened his influence. His speeches had been secretly recorded and shared across Iran. He promised independence, justice, freedom from foreign influence, and an Islamic government. By January 1979, the Shah realized he could no longer remain in power. On January 16, 1979, he left Iran. Officially, it was described as a temporary departure. In reality, he would never return as ruler. Across the country, millions celebrated. Only 2 weeks later, on February 1, 1979, Ayatollah Khomeini returned to Iran. Millions of people welcomed him. Within weeks, the monarchy that had ruled for more than 2,500 years came to an end. The Islamic Republic of Iran was born. For the United States, the revolution was a huge shock. Washington had spent decades supporting the Shah through military, economic, and political partnerships. Almost overnight, everything changed. The new Iranian government viewed America very differently. Many leaders believed the United States had helped overthrow Iran's democratically elected government in 1953. They believed America had protected the Shah while many Iranians suffered. Trust disappeared. Suspicion replaced friendship. But an even greater crisis was about to begin. In October 1979, the United States allowed the former Shah to enter America for medical treatment. Many Iranians feared that Washington might help him return to power. The memories of the 1953 coup were still alive. On November 4, 1979, hundreds of revolutionary students stormed the American embassy in Tehran. They captured American diplomats and embassy staff. The students demanded that the Shah be returned to Iran. Finally, the entire world watched in shock. The remaining 52 negotiations hostages were released. Days became weeks. The hostage crisis permanently destroyed diplomatic relations between Iran and the United States. The two countries officially cut diplomatic ties. They have never fully restored them. The rivalry continued to grow during the following decades. During the Iran-Iraq War, both countries viewed each other with increasing suspicion. Economic sanctions expanded. Political disagreements became more serious. The two governments also clashed over regional conflicts, missile programs, and Iran's nuclear activities. Iran insisted its nuclear program was peaceful. The United States and several Western countries feared it could eventually lead to nuclear weapons. Years of negotiations followed. Sometimes progress was made. Sometimes talks failed. Each disagreement created even more mistrust. Another major crisis came in January 2020. The United States carried out a drone strike near Baghdad International Airport. The target was General Qasem Soleimani, one of Iran's most powerful military commanders. His death shocked the region. Iran responded with missile attacks against American military bases in Iraq. For several days, many feared a direct war between the two countries. Fortunately, a larger conflict was avoided. But relations reached one of their lowest points in decades. Today, many people ask why Iran and the United States remain rivals. The answer cannot be found in a single event. It is the result of many historical moments. The 1953 coup. The Shah's rule. The Islamic Revolution. The hostage crisis. Economic sanctions. Regional conflicts. And decades of growing mistrust. Every generation inherited the consequences of the one before it. History continued shaping politics, diplomacy, and public opinion. The story of Iran and the United States teaches us an important lesson. Trust takes years to build. But it can be destroyed very quickly. Foreign intervention may create consequences that last for generations. And the decisions made by today's leaders often become tomorrow's history. It is a story of friendship, power, oil, fear, revolution, and the choices that changed millions of lives. Once, these two nations stood together as trusted partners. Today, they remain among the world's most determined rivals. Whether their relationship will improve in the future, no one can say with certainty. But one thing is clear. To understand today's headlines, we must first understand yesterday's history. Because history never truly disappears. It echoes through every generation. If you enjoyed improving your English through this historical story, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to English Orbit, and turn on the notification bell for more inspiring documentaries and true stories. Until our next story. Keep learning. Keep growing. And keep exploring the world through English. Thank you for watching.